Are there any buyers left at all? Is anyone there to buy a car on Bring a Trailer or Cars and Bids? This is Bid Nerds. We're going to talk about that, plus predictions on all new cars. This is going to be fun. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your daily YouTube car game show, where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds. Boom! Hello, everyone. Welcome to a live edition of Bid Nerds. It's your Sunday night with the nerds. Welcome to the show. My name is John Polnick. I'm your host in the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner Michael Deeb in San Francisco. Just the two of us in studio tonight. What's up, Michael Deeb? How you doing?
What's up, JP? So Sunday night is Lonely Hearts Club. It's just you and me.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. All the lonely listeners out there, like long time listeners, first time callers. Is that what
we've got some big guests lining up here for the next couple of weeks, but no one tonight. So just gonna hang with us. But hey, it's not just us; it's also the nerd herd out there. Kevin's already hanging out. Gerd's already in the chat. Chris Carbine, of course. We got Buddha hanging out. We did some driving this weekend. Buddha was there on the Saturday drive. We had breakfast. Great day. Let's see who else is hanging out already.
Yeah.
Randy B's already. Hey, Lee Patet. We just shot some pictures of my 997.
What's up,
it's
Lee?
Be up for sale here in a second. So yeah, welcome, Nerd Nation. How you doing? Hey, the lovely and talented Esther.
No,
Esther Deeb is in there.
No,
what's going on? Oh, is that just you?
Yeah, I'm so technically tarded that my wife is logged into the YouTube on our home computer, and I don't know how to log her out of YouTube. So I've been commenting for a couple of weeks as Esther, and so I'm like, "Sup, nerds?" And I'm like, "That's not how she talks," you know. Like,
I was gonna say that's.
But I'm sure everybody's cracking up. And a quick shout to Randy B. I know, JP, I don't know how you've carried me all these years. I have been the ball and chain around your ankle for 3 years trying to get this show live. But Randy B, I owe you a phone call today. It looks like Chef got us some rooms, so I think there's a confirmation coming your way tomorrow, but it looks like we're all set at the Marriott. So Randy, I'll call you tomorrow to give you some numbers and all that other nonsense, but I apologize. Chef reached out to me yesterday, and I meant to call you today, but super busy. House cleaning. What's up, JP? I'm so glad we made it, just the two of us, huh? You and me again, just like the old times.
Why are we staying at the Marriott again in Long Beach? That doesn't make any sense. It's not even a rate. But anyways, we'll talk about that offline.
Half off.
It's not half off. You can go on Booking.com and get it for like $8 more. Like this big rate we were supposed to get. It's
just don't tell Randy B that. Don't still tell Randy B that. Yeah.
Boy, yeah,
he'd probably get a better rate with his premium card. You know,
I'm sure he would.
Loyal listener.
Shout out to our good friends over at Godden Porsche and Godden Classic of Las Vegas. If you're looking for a classic Porsche or parts for your classic Porsche, they've got genuine Porsche classic TM parts that you can get from them. So give them a shout and say that you heard you heard of them from Bid Nerds. And also, if you're going, hey, what time is it? Is it time for Bid Nerds yet? Are you looking at your watch and your watch isn't keeping up and you miss Bid Nerds? You don't want to do that. So send your fine Swiss watch to our Smiths in Idaho, and they will get your fine Swiss watch in tip-top shape. Fine Swiss watch repair, and always a great selection of fine Swiss watches for sale as well. Our Smiths. Give them a holler. Let's hear. We got Kristen S. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, because I know one of the biggest complaints we get from the commenters in the hard comments, not the live nerd herd, the loyals, but the other peanut gallery, is that they say we spend way too much time talking about BS before we get into the cars. So I just wanted to ask you, JP, in a very long ramp up to a question, if we could talk a little bit about BS before we start. I went to the Easy Show yesterday over in Emeryville, and it was really fun. And I always forget to ask you this question, but like every month you do the Cars Un Cafe, and then of course Chef does those Monday night things at Red Rock, which they really started after I left town. Yeah. But the question I never ask you, so I'm going to ask you in real time, is How often when you're at these things do people come up to you that you haven't seen for a week or two or a month or whatever, and the thing they want to talk about is this show? Because you're involved in so many things in the Porsche community out there. I imagine, like for me, the people that know me here kind of know me through you and the Dur universe, even here in my own backyard, because I left for Vegas an Alpha Fiat and wannabe Ferrari guy. And I came back a Porsche kid, and I met all my Porsche friends through you, via Der Fascination and now the show. So at the Easy thing, I had a handful of people come up to me and talk about the show, which was really cool. And I just wonder, JP, if you could tell the audience, in your day-to-day, when your Porsche friends come up to you in Las Vegas, how often is it that the first thing out of their mouth is something pertaining to a recent episode of The Nerds?
I think it's different, because you lived here. Las Vegas is a small town. I mean, it's a small city.
It's a really
big
big
town.
small
It's
town.
a big town, yeah, but it's a small city. So, the people that I see at all these events, I see them all the time. So it's and they all know that we do the show, and so it is very, everyone, like if I'm having a conversation that's longer than 10 minutes with someone, BAT or some listing is going to come up at some point. That's for sure. But it's not like going to the Easy where you haven't seen someone for a month. At least, or maybe longer. And so it's a little bit different animal. So, but yeah, everyone here is very aware of the show, and they're great to, help support it and stuff like that. And we're going to be at the Motor Club tomorrow night. And I appreciate, who was it? Kevin's on here saying, hey, we love the BS. I think that's the thing, when it comes to YouTube, you guys are the in the Nerd Herd are the OGs, right? You guys are the original Nerd Nation, and that's why we love you guys so much. We are a small little channel, and all the YouTube
big aspirations.
Everything that they tell you about building a YouTube channel is get right to the point. Have some kind of hook, and then deliver value right away. And that makes sense if you're doing an unboxing video or telling someone how to do, I don't know, how to change a tire or do a specific task, or how to do a makeup tutorial or something like that. But what we're really trying to do is build a community where it's like hanging out with friends. All of you guys in the Nerd Herd are like our friends, and we shoot the ish with you guys just like you were our buddies. If we were at the Red Rock Motor Club like tomorrow night and we're all in the same room, or it's here. Yeah, we really want this space to be more like hanging out with your buddies. And yeah, we have a format. We do the thing where we're, we cover the cars and stuff like that. And that just kind of gives us something to move the conversation along, because we got to get somewhere. We got to cover some specific information. So I think we're going to continue to struggle as a YouTube channel to get huge anytime soon, because I'm not interested in really changing the format to go right to, the market is crashing. Everything is done. Oh my gosh. There's no buyer. Obviously I opened the show with, what happened to all the buyers? Are there any buyers left? Right? Yeah. When I put flames in the thumbnail and say, market crash, we get 10 times more viewers on those videos. The algorithm understands what that is. So that's why it's really important for you guys in the Nerd Herd. If you want to help us grow this channel and make more friends, and find more people that are like us, because we know they're out there. It's really kind of on you guys to share the videos, because it's either us sharing the videos and getting the word out, or it's up to the YouTube algorithm sharing the videos with other people. And unfortunately, the algorithm is going to people who just want a specific piece of information. They don't want to hear us talking. They don't want to see never show your face, just show the cars. Nobody wants to see you guys. Well, that's probably true. But anyways,
10,000.
Yeah, exactly. If this was just an audio only show and we just had the cars, we'd probably get 1 million views. But I don't know. Do you guys like the way we do the channel? We're doing this for the love. Obviously, we're not really making any money here. This is just because we...
Yeah. Anthony, he didn't mean that. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, no one's paying the mortgage, right? But...
Rami pays more than anybody else.
I think so. It's true. All right. So the Nerd Herd is having a day here. I love how you guys are all just jibber jabbing amongst each other in the chat.
JP, did you go to the track with Buddha and the boys today? Did you go out there?
I did not. Hey, what's the dog park today? Yeah.
Myers, Buddha, you should reach out to Carbine, because Carbine sent me some photos of a bunch of cooled air cooleds that looked like they were in the parking lot of a racetrack. So you guys might have something to talk about in the chat today while we're jibber jabbing.
All right, guys. Well, since if you're new to the channel, welcome. We hope you stick around for the fun part. We do want you to be part of the jibber jabber chat at the beginning. But if you hate us, well, then go watch Hoovie's Garage.
Get in line.
I mean, whatever. If you want someone to talk like this all the time and go, hey, then Doug DeMuro got lots of videos for you. But
this is a waste of time.
I'm going to tell you about this little thing and the thing on the door jam that does the thing. And oh my God, my voice is going to squeak. And then it's going to, okay, we're done with that. Let's move on. All right. Yeah. Enough ishing on everybody else. Let's get to the cars. So what do we do on this channel? If you're new to the channel, what we do is we make predictions on car listings on Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer, P-Car Market, and more. And we always start the show by reconciling our previous predictions. That's the fun part. See if you can play along. Are you guys better at making predictions on BAT listings than us? Let's find out. Michael Deeb, we had some pretty cool cars on the last episode. What was the first one on the list? Do you recall?
John, who picked this? I think Sahan picked this one for us, right? Yeah, there's his name squeezed in there behind the long word commemorative. So, John, the first car last week was a 1988 Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe commemorative edition. So in 89, they had the anniversary, but in 88, there was a special edition referred to as the commemorative edition. 875 total examples were built to celebrate the production of the 250,000th 911. Of the 300 units that were brought to the United States, 120 of them were all finished in diamond blue. Our car is out of Agora Hills, California, showing 354,000 miles on the odometer, and it sits on Bring a Trailer. But the big news here, JP, is that just a year ago, the motor was rebuilt, and it was rebuilt with higher compression pistons and stuff like that. And then they did a mild sort of sporty makeover with the fixed back seats and the RS door cards. Cosmetically, the car looks to be in decent condition. I will commend the owner of the car, the consignor of the car, for showing a picture of the leather seats that they pulled out of the car, because the leather seats look like they have 354,000 miles on them, but the car looks to be in decent shape. And with a fresh motor, we wondered how well this special edition, unique colorway, high compression motor, G50 gearbox. Like if you take the odometer out of the conversation, everything else about this car ticks every box you'd want for a G-body Carrera. Am I right or am I right? So we wondered out loud what this car could do. And with that in mind, I started the bidding at $77,911, knowing that if this car had somewhere between 100 and 150,000 miles, this would easily be a six-figure car. But we took the mileage into consideration, and so that's where I started, $77,911. JP, you took the over by just a couple of grand at $79,911. And then we had AJ in studio. AJ's from Vegas, and you invited him into the studio. He was our third nerd last week while Wade was out. AJ took the under at $75,911. So I see it looks like the bids are up. Randy was at 67. Anthony was at 69, very under. Gerd, who's typically one of the more accurate herd, was really bearish on this one at 55. Kevin at 73, that's a good bid. Scott D at 67, Ross at 68, and SGT Tom, wow, 53. That is the low bid. JP, before we even get to the result, man, nobody liked this car, huh? Like, what's the deal?
The motor, scared of the miles, but it's like, who cares, right?
But that's a $40,000 motor. Am I wrong?
I mean, probably close to that. I mean, these days, that's about what they're charging for a complete rebuild with upgrades. Yeah,
but if you're going
25 to 40 grand, sure.
Correct me, because there's like three levels of a motor upgrade, right? Top end, and then pistons and cylinders, and then a full bottom end where you split the case. Is this? If you're doing pistons,
full rebuild with pistons and stuff, but they didn't change the displacement size, did they? They just basically went high compression. But still, you're definitely looking at between $30,000 and $40,000 for that kind of rebuild for sure. Totally fresh engine. Yeah,
25, 30 horsepower is going to wake this motor up, and it's probably going to rev 500, 600, 700 RPM higher. It's going to be a fun motor. I don't care. So, anyways, long story longer, our car hammered at $76,000 where it sold on a very respectable 35 bids. JP, I had to do the math because that bid landed in between AJ and myself. AJ was closer, so he gets the nod. But
he has a GT3 RS, right?
I heard that. Yeah, he mentioned it. And a Lamborghini and a Koenigsegg and a few cars. But we tease AJ. So I would just say, John, the three of us that were on the show were really close to what this car brought. But the herd was really dogged. They kind of dogged the car. Everybody was in the 60s, and there were a couple in the 50s. I'm more interested in why the herd was so. Did we do a bad job presenting the car? Like, does the odometer scare? And I'm not calling the herd average, but does the odometer scare the average guy away? Because if you change the axles and you update the brakes and you build a new motor, that car's brand new again, right? Like, what am I missing?
Well, I mean, there was one thing I don't think we really mentioned when we were talking about the cars, that there was some corrosion here and there. But to me, it just didn't, none of it was really, there was no cancer there. There was a little bit around one of the, windshield or something like that. So, it could be argued that if you wanted this car to be Concord level, you'd have to like strip it down to paint and fix those things. But to me, it's like, who cares, man? The only thing I would do to this car if I owned it, and this is absolutely a car that I would love to own, would be to lower it. Make sure the suspension is good, and because it's it's North America 4x4 status height. It's very easy to lower one of these, and or just put safari tires on it. It's already high enough, and you're good to go. I mean, this car is a fresh, old 911. I know that's kind of sounds like an oxymoron or whatever, but I just don't think the rust was anywhere near as bad as everyone's saying. It had a couple of little spots. Big deal. But 76 grand. I mean, because if you back out the engine, if you back out the $40,000 for an engine rebuild, what is that? $30,000. I mean, if the engine were blown or something. So, I mean, this car is definitely, even if this car had a blown engine, this thing's worth 50 grand. It's a G50 car. And G50 cars bring the money. If this were just a regular Carrera or an SC, then with a rebuilt motor, maybe you'd be lucky to get something, in the high 50s or whatever. But this is a G50 car, guys. Plus the Commander River Edition, which doesn't really mean anything to me, but still adds a little something to the value. I'm not shocked by these results. I think that's pretty much right on. And, I'd mentioned on the last episode too, this car is going to be a canary in the coal mine.
Coal mine, right.
Right. And your pushback was, no, we should have, a canary in a coal mine would be a more regular version of the car without any but my whole point is that I want to look at the fringes. I want to look at the margin. This car is a margin car. This isn't a blue chip car. This car is out there on the edge. It's got a bunch of things, like you said, that everyone should like, but way high miles and some corrosion. But also, so these are all things that in a market that was having real problems, this car no one would even touch, right? This would be an FTS car, but it still got $76,000. That means a good 88 911, if with normal miles, is still darn near $100,000 car probably.
Yeah.
Does that add up? I think, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it does. Anthony's screaming at us in the comments, and of course Anthony could do that because he's the sponsor of the show, but he's saying rust, you're missing the rust. So based on that assertion, do you think, JP, that the person who did pay 76 may have overreached just a little bit? Do you think that he missed the rust?
Have rust. This car had a couple of rust spots. It's not a rusty car. Look underneath this car. This is not a rusty car. Look at this, guys. Where's the rust?
It's cleaner than my M491.
Right. This thing
my M491 has more orange underneath it than that does.
There is no rust in this car, guys. It had a couple of typical spots, one under the door where sometimes the water collects, and one in that corner under the windshield in that lower right-hand corner, which is just something those are a couple of spots. Big deal. It's a galvanized body. This thing's fine. Everybody relax.
It's not a Fiat.
Yeah, right. It's not going to break in half like a 914 or something like that.
Dropped from a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. Love this car. But and if it didn't have those rust spots, would this have been a $90,000 car? Geez, I mean, I do agree with you, Anthony, that those couple of rust spots are issues. Don't get me wrong. It's not that they are that you just wave it away, but I don't think they're nearly as big a deal as somebody's making out to be. But anyways, all right. What do you guys think of the results of this 88 commemorative edition 911 with high miles but a brand new fresh engine and a bunch of cool mods? Was this car well bought, or did the seller steal some money out of someone's wallet? Did a buyer get mugged? Where are the buyers? They're buying old 911s apparently, and we support that. So if you've got some money and you're looking for a safe place to put it, seems like an air-cooled 911 is never gonna do you wrong.
A rusty air-cooled 911.
Yeah, there you go. Let's find the next car on the list. What else we got?
All right, JP, you selected for our guest host this 2018 Lamborghini Huracan Performante Coupe that has been supercharged. Our car was in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was offered on Bring a Trailer, and it's showing 34,000 miles. But the big news here, my big nose, is the VF Engineering Supercharger Kit. I'm sure the first thing you notice is that something unicorn wrap that AJ knew that paint recipe by label, which I thought was very funny.
Well, that's because he has the same thing on his car, only different spectrum apparently. His car is on the spectrum, is basically what we're saying.
That's okay. Just write everything down and then they'll remember it. Yeah. But anyway, VF Engineering Supercharger Kit, I think, makes all the difference here. AJ was saying that retail, that's like a $40,000 kit, and I don't think that included installation, which I imagine is more than a couple hours. But anyway, this car is making big horsepower, not thousands, but big horsepower. But it does have some miles on it, and you just sort of wonder. I feel like even Performante is a little soft because STOs are in the marketplace above them on the Lamborghini totem pole of hierarchy and money spent. And so we wondered how far this car would go. Would the modifications help or hinder its performance? So I started the bidding at $282,000. John, you took a very strong under by 32 grand. Your bid was $250,000. And then AJ parked his bid right underneath me at 281. Looking at the comments, I see Randy B was at 250, just like you. Anthony wanted to abstain. That's very funny. I love him. And then Gerd was at 265. Kevin at 245. That's a low bid. Scott D at 277 is up there by me. Ross at 276. Thank you, Ross. Welcome to the game. And I can't read the name. Tom at 259. So JP, that's a big spread. Also, 245. That's a really low bid, but not entirely out of the question because our car hammered at just $214,000, where it failed to sell on 8 bids. John, this car is just so damn unique looking, and now it's got a failure to sell at $214,000, which is around $80,000 to $100,000 below market value. That's tough to say with the mods and the higher miles. Maybe it's a little less. But not only is it $214,000 its own comp for when this guy goes to try and sell it to anybody else on the planet, because that VIN is in the listing. But dude, he only got 8 bids. John, is this car burned?
No, I don't think this car is burned at all because, because look, it's all he's got to do is spend the $3,000 and pull this stupid wrap off. And no one's going to realize it's the same damn car. I mean, yeah, someone might here and there or whatever, but the curb appeal of this car is in the negative, right? This car is so specifically, appeals to such a narrow window of douchebags that, I think half the people that want this car, can't. There are people that could have afforded this car when it was contemporary, but now most of those people don't have any money anymore, and there's no way they're getting one of these, even though they may want it. This is crypto, bro. This is it's pot money. This is just so out of style. It's amazing. I mean, I get that this may have been cool for about a nanosecond, but now anybody that sees this car is just like, dude, what? It's just like, it's a tone deaf car. It's like nobody thinks this is cool anymore. So I don't know. I mean, maybe. Yeah, but the great thing about the car is even though it looks terrible now, all you got to do is remove that wrap, and it's going to look like a completely different car. I would love to see what it looked like underneath. And anyway, and this car goes and gets listed. I actually think a lot of those mods are pretty cool. You know, the suspension, the supercharger, all that kind of stuff. Those are things that people want. But it's straight up. It's that wrap just says, I don't want to be the person that's like this person. Also, the person that does this kind of thing to one of these cars is probably may have blown the engine 3 times, right? You know, this is the kind of person that throws a big stupid supercharger on there and treats the car like crap, blows it up, and then does it again. So the car is getting used hard and put away wet. You make it look back to the normal car, you bring it back to the normal color that it would be, and then people aren't going to have that assumption about the car. I think someone on the last episode mentioned that you wouldn't want to take, what was it, a black light to the interior, because God knows what you're going to, because that's the kind of person that owns this thing, right? You don't want to be the next person after this. I'm
going to give you shit because you said that you didn't think it was burned, but everything you just said didn't sound like you were defending that it wasn't burned. But I'm going to take
because hold on. I just want to defend this. It's the car. If you left it this color, it's burned, because everyone will recognize that it's that douchebag car. But if you pull the wrap off, no one will realize that it's the douchebag car. It'll just look like a different STL. Or not STL, but a Performante.
Performante, yeah. So, and I'll just take the counter and say, I do think it's burned, because if I'm shopping for a $250,000 car, I'm going to run the VIN. And if I find out that this car ran on BAT and it failed to sell at 214, even if the car is appraised, like say a regular Performante is worth 290, this one with the supercharger and the high miles is truly a 265 car. If I'm armed with the information that this car FTS'd at $214,000, I am hammering this guy that he's not going to get his 265 for it, because he's his own worst comp. So if I'm armed with that knowledge, he's not getting full retail at whatever it praises for from me. And so I think the car is burned. Even if it cost him just $5,000, he screwed up because he didn't take the wrap off, which bid nerds would have told him to do that in the first place. I'm a big believer that you want the car to look as original as possible, unless you're talking about like an old 911. But on a new Lamborghini, yeah, man, you narrow the appeal when you go rainbow wrap. I just don't see what you're doing. I know there's a whole world of crypto bros that think that's cool, but you're asking somebody to plunk down more than 250 grand. Bro,
you got a lot of options at that number.
Yeah,
right?
Come on, man. Yeah, that's crazy.
Randy
stuff.
B, I think, nailed it. He's like, the owner of this car sat in parking lots and blowing flames. This is that guy.
Oh yeah, totally.
And how many of these have you seen catch fire on the internet? It's always the ones that have these crazy. Even AJ talked about how he put the supercharger or turbo kit on it, and the first one, the stage 1, blew up his engine. So what did he do? He went and did it again, only a stage 3. It's like, what do you think is going to happen? Whatever. I just this is not smart money right here. That's all there is to say.
3 best, if you're bored, like on the toilet at the airport or whatever, 3 best videos to watch on YouTube. Mustangs leaving cars and coffee and doing burnouts until they crash into oncoming traffic. Lamborghinis shooting flames until they catch on fire. And pedestrian people crashing their daily drivers on the Nürburgring. Those are the 3 best topics to scroll. If you're a bid nerd, just any one of those 3, and you will lose hours of your life and go, oh my God, it's Tuesday, and I was just watching these videos.
So on the next episode of Bid Nerds, we're going to stop doing predictions. We're just going to show people crash on the Nürburgring.
Absolutely,
yeah,
the best.
Have you ever been? You've been to Car Week, and you go down on Cannery Row, exotics on Cannery Row, and it's basically 30
Same
of these
thing.
guys just hitting the rev limiter, and the guys that want to be those guys walking around with their 4-year-olds whose hearing is just being ruined, and it's just like no, I can do that. Oh God, just get me the hell out of here. Never go to that event, you guys.
That Tom Petty lyric where he goes, "Hey Spike, you're scaring my wife."
Oh boy, this is weak sauce. All right, what do you guys think of this rainbow edition of the Lamborghini Performante? Was this car ruined, and was the car burned like my partner thinks it was, or could the seller get a second bite at the apple by simply removing this absurd wrap and maybe trying to fool some people into thinking that this is a well-kept car. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And we made one other prediction on the last episode, so let's go ahead and reconcile that one. Michael D, what else we got on there? And I don't look. I'm going to tell you, I want to skip this one. I'm just going to tell you at the top of I want to skip this one because I have never been more wrong on my own show than I was on this car. Not necessarily the numbers, but just like I was completely misinformed on this car, and I've owned one of these. Michael D, just put me out of my misery. What was the next car?
So JP selected for us a 1991 Toyota MR2 LS Coupe with a 5-speed manual.
For the fans of the show, Deeb is making a joke.
Inside joke.
I'm always right about the MR2s. I was totally wrong on this one.
So it's an Acura Legend Coupe.
Dick.
And what John is referring to is that throughout our presentation of the car on the last episode, John was pounding the table for these cars being actually good drivers in the name of the fact that this car has a rear-wheel drive. And then it was proven to us by the end of the presentation that even this particular generation of the Legend Coupe and even the original generation of the Legend Coupe were all front-wheel drive. Despite that, John enjoyed his time in those and still thought this would be worth taking a look at because he thought the car would bring a big number. So our particular car was on Bring a Trailer, located in Sacramento. Definitely a boomer colorway with the gold and tan interior, but it is a 5-speed manual. It does have reasonably low miles with just 80,000 miles on a 3.2-liter single overhead cam V6 5-speed manual powering the front wheels. Car's nice, clean Carfax, decent photos. We don't see them very often. And in this condition, if it were a rear-wheel drive and perhaps if this car could live up to the driving experience that John described, these cars might bring more money. I didn't buy, and as such, I was the low man, which is definitely, you guys know, is unusual for me, but I went $13,800. JP said this would be an easy win, if I can quote you, John, and said $19,999, but this is just a layup, as JP predicted. And then John's invited guest, AJ, on the show said $18,500 and probably thought it was a Toyota MR2. In the herd, we see Randy at $20,500 taking the over. Anthony believed every word that JP said and gave us $24,000. Carbine at $21,400. I can't believe all these guys just completely they busted. Kevin at $15,000. That's a good bid. I can't see that. Is that Elf? Is that what I'm reading? Oh, Leaf. Sorry, Leaf. Please forgive me. I'm looking at my phone, Leaf, just so you know. 20,000. Ross at 16. Tom at 12,200. Vampire Bear, great handle, 22,000. William at 10,500. And Scott D at 18,009. Just want to give a nod to William. He hated the car more than I did. Our result at Hammer was 16,000. This was no reserve car. $16,750. And John, the audience for this car was there. So I just want to give you this. 43 bids. This car got some action, but the number did not live up to your description. So at 16,750, it splitted it split the difference between my bid and AJ's. And again, AJ was closer, so he gtes the nod. But in the herd, I want to say
but I beat you, so there you
Kevin,
go.
you did beat me. I think Ross, basically, look at Ross. I mean, Ross was $250 off of Yahtzee, so Ross, well done to you. JP, I know you want to skip this one because you got some facts on the car wrong, but as you thought this would be a $20,000 or more car, and the car came in at $16,750, do you think your excitement around the car pertained to it being a driver's car as a rear-wheel drive where the reality was different? Or do you think that Legends, nobody cares, that's why these cars aren't bringing the money? Like, because the car is a really nice condition car. Like, I mean,
no, this is
Camry might bring 16 grand though.
As wrong as I was about some of the facts of the car, I wasn't wrong about the fact that this car is a popular car, that these are cars that people are nostalgic for. I think what hurt this car more than anything wasn't that it wasn't rear-wheel drive, because the people that as ill-informed as I am, know that this is a front-wheel drive car. But even despite that, they drive really, really well. And some of the most popular cars from the early 90s are front-wheel drive cars. I mean, how many times have we talked about the $80,000 Mark II GTI? I mean, these cars are just bulletproof. It's like an Acura Integra or any of those cars from this era. They're just fantastic. And I think what hurt the cars is the color. Frankly, I think it's the fact that it's grandpa gold. If this thing were white or black or silver or almost any of the other colors that these came in, I think it would have easily hit my number or higher. If this were, what was the transmission? Was this a manual one? I can't remember. This was
5-speed manual.
This is a 5-speed,
and it's Country Club Champagne is the name of the color.
I mean, that's really the the bummer about this car is the color. Because this really is a fantastic, this is a great GT car. This is a great car that you get on the freeway and you just, if you here, I live in Las Vegas. If I had to go to San Francisco every other weekend or whatever, this would be a great car to do in it because it's totally reliable. It's going to be super comfortable and it's going to be under the radar.
Good gas mileage.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, it is still
200 horse. You're not drinking gas. It's a Honda,
like
don't
an
forget.
SUV, sure, for sure, yeah. But no, I don't know. This is just a nice car. I think that it was well bought, even with the silly color. But I think that's the opportunity for someone to get into something like this when they aren't a popular color. And this car would be people would fawn all over this thing at Radwood. So this is definitely a car that people want.
I'll let you down. I'll let you down easy, JP. You'll remember we did the show one time and covered a thing, and I said that I thought the things were all-wheel drive on the air. So we've all been there.
Yep, that's true. It happens. But I've been wrong on one time out of how many hundreds of shows? I mean, it's just
just the one time.
Just the one time. That's really it.
Just
and I was still at the end of the day, I was still right. I was just wrong about a couple of things. That's all. Grasping at straws here, guys. All right, we're going to be right back with some new predictions after a word from our sponsor, if I can find it. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. Swiss repair. Okay, I got to hit the right button there. Welcome back, everybody. We've got more nerd stuff to talk about here. It's gotten dark in the studio, so I think I've got to turn my little light on. Michael Deeb, we have some new predictions. What's the first car on the list?
All right, JP, I selected for us because I'm still obsessed with the anniversary models of this, but I picked a 2011 Lamborghini Gallardo. This particular one is an LP 552. So the 550, I think, is because the car makes almost 550 horsepower. The 2 means it's a rear-wheel drive only. Our car is a coupe. And here's the big news, John. It's got a 6-speed manual transmission, but it's not an anniversary car. This is just a regular early 11 manual 2-wheel drive. Our car is black on black. It's got just 8,000 miles. It's on Bring a Trailer. The caveat here is that it's located in Vancouver, British Columbia, but I don't think it would be an issue to bring this car into most of the lower 48. It would be a problem to California, but I think everywhere else would be balls to the wall. And let's face it, the guy can afford, north of $200,000 for this thing. Probably has an LLC in Montana, so he can bring it anywhere he wants anyways. But just kind of a no-nonsense, dare I say slightly under the radar because it's not some wild color and it's not some anniversary with like fancy wings and wheels and carbon buckets. This is just, sort of a .2 Gallardo with rear-wheel drive where most of them are 4-wheel drive and 6-speed manual where most of them are like that single clutch E-gear. I mean, John, this is the car you want and it's not going to cost you $300,000. So I like this car. JP, every once in a while I pick a black on black exotic, which is if we all had FU money, this is the car I would buy you. I think, you had that yellow cab, Spider, I should say, and you love that thing, even though we teased you for wearing your banana hammock in public. This car with some stickers and some different wheels and a little bit of exhaust on it, JP, man, I could see you absolutely rocking this car. And everybody's like, "Hey, when are you going to sell it?" You're like, "I'm not selling this car. It's everything." I think this car is badass. I really like it, and made me think of you, JP, because it's got the Polnick package, black on black with black wheels. But the manual, have you ever driven a Gallardo manual, JP? It is as easy to drive as a Honda Legend. And I'm not teasing you, I'm dead serious. Where Ferrari manuals are a chore, this car is butter. The clutch is light. The shift is just the right. It's not like Miata or S2000 short, but it's not a long throw. It's a short, precise. It's super easy to read the gate. Like you don't have to look down to do your shifts. Everything just naturally cuts. But once it clicks and it engages, you feel it. Like you feel it through your bones, and your clutch is already coming up. It just clicks right into gear. And then, of course, a 540 something horsepower naturally aspirated V10 right behind your ears because it's mid-engine. These are spectacular, underappreciated cars. They're really, really fun. And I think the future will be very kind to one like this, which is a really nice colorway with low miles and in good condition. I think this is an absolute find, despite it being in Canada. So I really enjoyed picking this car, serving it up to you. JP, I would love to see you in this car. I know that right now we can't afford it, but the next check Anthony writes, I think we're getting new Lamborghinis. So there you go, my friend. What do you think about the gift I emotionally give to you? A black 552 with a 6-speed. Oh, come on, man. Does it get any better than that?
Can you go buy a lotto ticket so you can win some
Tampa.
money? I am down for buying this car. Yeah.
Some man in Florida won. I mean, he didn't win 1.23 billion. You know, somebody takes half of that, but he won a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, this car is definitely, me personally, I love it, but I think just in general, like, I mean, we talked about that rainbow color crazy Performante thing before the break, right? Yeah. I'd rather have this car all day long. Like that rainbow car, I would be embarrassed, right? I would want tinted windows because I wouldn't want anyone to see me in it. Literally, like I wouldn't, if I won that car in the lottery or someone said, "Here, this is yours," it would be like the only reason I would drive it is to take it somewhere where I could take pictures of it because I'm putting it back on BAT and going to sell it for anything somebody will give me for. Whereas this car,
no reserve.
This car, exactly. I want to keep, I would own. This is there's so few exotic cars that do anything for me anymore because none of them have 3 pedals anymore. And this is kind of like the end of an era. And I think there's a lot of people like me out there. I do love the R8s. And I think the R8, you know, obviously they're very similar cars. But the R8 just does not have the curb appeal of this car. You know, maybe if you closed your eyes while you're driving it, they're pretty much the same thing. But no, this is a Lambo, still a Lambo, and people see something like this. It just has that sense of occasion, whereas the R8s don't quite have that panache. And again, I'm not knocking R8s. I love R8s. I'd love to get another one. But with this 6-speed, 3 pedals, black on black, I don't want a green one. Don't want an orange one. Most of these you see around are bright green or bright orange, right? You know, I almost like, if it's like, okay, I would take one at any color that you could get with 6 speeds, but I would definitely wrap it black if I'm going to do a wrap, right?
The difference here, JP, and the herd can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. The R8 never came with a manual and rear-wheel drive, whereas the Gallardo did, and this is one of them, and this is what separates the two. And so while we love the R8s, if you get one with a manual, you're still getting all-wheel drive. It doesn't mean it's a bad driving car. They're epic handling cars. If you took one to the country club out there at Spring Mountain, all your friends would hate you because they wouldn't be able to keep up with you because the cars are that good. But the Gallardo, the genius thing they did was give us a rear-wheel drive with a manual. And as supercars have elevated to a status that is so out of touch and so tone deaf, like everything we said about that particular Performante and the typical person that aspires to own a car like that. I love that the Gallardo and even the all-wheel drive manual R8s are sort of like the last attainable exotic cars. And to me, they don't have that, like, you can't touch me or you can't talk to me supercar status. They're just like, oh man, you could afford to have that exotic car. And I would, if I had the money, I would buy that thing because it's black and it's manual and it's rear wheel drive and it's unbelievable to drive. So I totally dig it.
So what's it going to bring? That's the big question. Are there buyers left out there to buy something this crazy? If you want to buy this car, you pretty much have to have the money nowadays. A year ago, when we were talking about cars like this, or a year and a half ago, stuff like this was going crazy because if you didn't have the money, you could just go get money for free from a bank. Banks were like bending over backwards to loan money on stuff like this with very low interest rates. But that is not the case anymore. So is anyone left with the money to buy something like this?
Well, that's a good question. I really feel like if you're buying this car, you're not borrowing the money to buy it. I feel like a car this expensive, you kind of have to have the money. And that really does narrow the field. However, these cars will bring the money. That's not going to make it cheaper because there's less people out there. The people that can afford it are going to pay for it. It's an interesting thing, JP, because 4 years ago or 5 years ago, you could have bought this car for probably half of what it's going to go for today. And I mean that sincerely. This car has basically doubled in value in the last handful of years, which is crazy. So listen to this. I often use the Haggerty price guide, the valuation guide, just to get me in the ballpark of what the values are going to be so that I set a number that at least sort of makes sense, you know? And oftentimes I'm wrong. But in excellent condition number 2, the Haggerty guide says an 11 LP 552 is $163,000. By the way, in the last quarter, that's up 10%. And then it says at the bottom, it is a plus 50% for manual transmission. So at $163,000, they're telling us that this car is going to bring another $81,500, putting this at around a little over $240,000. So I'm just going to lean on the price guide, put my feet up, and just say, all right, JP, I'm going to give you 240, and all that is based on the fact that right now, John, I kind of went to the dessert, and now I'm going back to give you the vegetables. Our car is at $187,000, and it has 3 days to go until it closes. Again, just 8,000 miles, and not even in our country at the moment. That $187,000 is brought to you by just 5 bids. But the tea leaves say that this car will bring all the money, I think, because the desirable options, color, and low miles. It looks like it's a clean example. So I'm going to go 240 and say thank you, Haggerty, for helping me beat my partner at his game. Where are you at, JP? Over or under 240,000? Knowing it'll probably cost this guy around 10 grand to bring it into the U.S., maybe a little more.
I think your analysis is spot on, except for the fact that the Canada problem is and can be a much bigger problem than just striking a check. If it were just a matter of like, okay, it's however much plus the Canada fee, fine, no problem.
Yeah.
Then I'd be with you. But whenever you add these barriers to entry, all the unknown factor of buying a car from across the border, getting it here, dealing with customs, God knows what stupid government official you're going to get who's going to find something. And then they're like, we're going to crush it. You're like, wait, what? I already paid for it. Too bad. Right. I think that kind of stuff just scares people away. Cars got to be in America. I think if it were in America, your number is right there. Maybe even better, but because it's here, I don't think because it's in Canada, I don't even think it's going to sail. I'm going to say FDS at 210,550 and just say it's that's not to say that isn't what I think the car is worth. And that isn't indicative of the market. If the car were in country, I think the sky's the limit. But I think people are just like really scared of importing cars right now. I've heard way too many horror stories lately. But everyone in the nerd herd is kind of agreeing with me. The whole Canada thing is scaring a lot of people, even though their bids are all much higher than me. Gerd's at 225,000. Anthony's at 228,500. Buddha's with me saying 205 because it's in Canada. 220. Canada will hurt it a tad, but a rare car.
Tom agrees with me. Tom's at 245. George is at 234. That's only $6,000 off my bid. There's plenty of people that agree with me. I'm not the only one out there.
No,
I just can't believe I gave you a Lamborghini and you hate Lamborghinis. That's just crazy.
That's really what it is. Yeah. I mean, I think that, see, that's the thing is that you would buy this car for me and then it would just wind up sitting in Bellingham for 8 years until Canada would finally just crush it because some paperwork was done wrong.
That's right. That's right. They would, and then they would use it to make mounts for the rope for the ferries over there. I We were in discussion and we were juxtaposing this against the Performante, and a question came up in my mind that we stumbled across. And so before we leave this Lamborghini, my question to you, going back to that rainbow colored Performante we covered, do you think that car would have done considerably better or even sold had the guy had the audacity to run at no reserve?
That's an interesting question. No, I don't think it would have. I think
you
it would have gotten more.
It was
action.
dead on arrival.
I think it was DOA because of the wrap. I think just nobody cared.
Curious.
I mean, how many bids? It got like hardly any bids.
Five,
right?
eight. Yeah,
a whole
really
8
low.
bids. It's just you may have gotten another bidder in there or something like that, but just nobody really wanted that unless it was an absolute bargain. Everyone was embarrassed by that car. Whereas this car, I think people really, really will want. And I mean, I want to be wrong on this. I want to see this car do well because I do think it's a great car and deserves the money. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a negative Nelly and just scared of Canada, or maybe I just don't like Canada. If something were to go wrong with the transaction, I'm not allowed in Canada anymore because I got a really big ticket up there years ago. It wasn't
on a motorcycle?
Wasn't a Dewey. It was on a Ducati, but it wasn't a Dewey. But I think I'd get arrested at the border. So like if the transaction went south and I had to go up there and try to find, the people and be like wrestle them for my money back or something like that, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have to hire you to do it. And that's
absolutely. That's like being in high school where guys asked me to buy up for liquor all the time because I always looked older than I was. Upperclassmen used to ask me as my freshman, sophomore year, they're like, Deeb, I heard you can get beers. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, dude, can you get some beers on Friday night? And so guys used to buy me my beers because I would go to liquor stores. I never got carded. I always looked like I was 21 from the time I was like 15.
I got Randy to revise his bid because of the Canada thing. So there it is. All right, guys, what do you think this little Lamborghini will bring? Will it bring all the money? Canadian, not like we're talking real money, not that stupid play money, from some ishole country. We're talking about American money. Right. So just make sure your bids are like not Canadian maple syrup dollars or whatever that crap is up there. All right. Let us know in the comments below and let's move on to the next car. What else we got?
All right, JP. You and I rarely dabble with vintage muscle cars. And the thing is, I have a sneaky suspicion you actually know a lot more about them than you let on. I will raise my hand and say I really don't know the first thing about muscle cars, except that I love them. And if the block is aluminum, I'm interested. But one of my clients was talking about a car he had, and then I saw exactly the type of car he had come up on BAT, and I thought, why not? Let's just change it up a little bit. So what we're talking about here is a 1970 Dodge Dart. This particular example is a Swinger 340 hardtop with a 4-speed manual, although I have a sneaky suspicion the 340 Swingers are only manual, but again, I wouldn't know because I don't know enough about them. What we're looking at, JP, is Mopar, which was sort of the performance division of Dodge, playing with what was at the time their sort of smallest coupe. The Dart was like their baby car. I think Ford's would have been like the Falcon. But they played with this car and they put a respectable size, 340 cubic inches displacement, is over 5 liters, but that's actually kind of a small V8 for them. So many of the Mopars were like 440 and above and all this other nonsense, 383 and whatnot. But it's a V8. It's a small, light chassis. It's rear-wheel drive, manual transmission, and it's got a big old 4-barrel and a Hurst shifter. And then somebody this car was originated in Canada, but it was brought into the United States, and somebody went and refurbished it in all of its original glory. So this car looks like it did on the day that it was born, with the Hemi orange paint and the hood scoops. I love JP. If you can get to the interior, John, tell me this doesn't remind you of high school. It's a bench seat with a manual transmission. How effing cool is that? Does that not take you back, to see a bench seat with a manual? And this is just, it's like that weirdly cool car your aunt drove and you're like, how come my aunt has a Mustang with a 3-speed and I'm driving a Fiat? I love this thing. I just think it's kind of cool. I like that it's small and diminutive. It makes me feel like if you really massage the chassis a little bit, you could almost get this thing to handle. But I bet that motor feels a lot bigger than it does because the Dart is such a lightweight car. So super cool car, not big value. We're not talking, crazy, like by the numbers, 1 of 3. They made a few of these things and they don't bring stupid money. This is not a 6-figure car. but an unusual model and something that you would look at and then you'd turn your head and then you'd look back and you're like, is that a Dodge Dart? Like, damn, that thing looks like it's got some stink on it. And it does. This thing goes. And so I got a client up in Sacramento that's got one. And this is, in essence, very similar to his car. And so I have him watching it and watching the show tonight. And I wanted to cover this car sort of for him. So JP, do you remember any like did any of your friends have a particularly rad Dodge Dart when you were a kid, or had you ever heard of a Swinger 340 before today's show? This thing just looks like it's like quietly cool. I like the two scoops, and there's a lot of details on this that are easy to fall for. So here you go, JP. Tell me about your history with the Dodge brand.
Well, a good friend of mine's mom did have one of these, and yes, I spent some time behind the wheel of it. I don't like these at all.
Okay.
I hate the way it looks, and I'm not busting on muscle cars in general, but because I do like some muscle cars, this isn't one of them. The look does nothing for me. I think it's one of the ugliest cars of all time, honestly. You could get this thing up in a straight line because like a lot of muscle cars and stuff, but the muscle cars of this era, boy, you go around a corner and boy, you're having a hard time.
Hang on.
And God help you if you go around that corner and there's a dump truck, in road construction where you weren't expecting it and you're going 90 miles an hour in this thing and you jump on those brakes and try to slow this. You said this is a light car. I don't know on what planet this is a lightweight car because those little brakes don't do ish, and all 9,000 pounds of steel are just like, they just lock up and it's like, is this going to stop? And, you wind up on, so that happened.
The difference, JP, is when I have that situation down here in the Bay Area, the road is dry. So the brakes can do whatever they can do, they can do. Up by you, when you do that, you're skidding for days.
Yeah, I mean, in that particular instance, it was dry out. It was in the summertime, but it was pretty scary.
Crazy.
I almost crashed into that dump truck. The guy with the sign, the road slow, he's like looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I blew right by him. It's like fully locked, just like, I'm doing this, but going in a straight line because it's there's so much slop in the steering and everything like that. I mean, this is just such an ugly, stupid Dodge. From the cars from that era most of them are pretty much junk, but you can find some exceptions, but this is definitely not one of them. Hate this car. But someone will love this thing because this is nostalgic for someone. Here's the thing. We talk about what drives classic cars all the time. And so back to the theme of this particular episode is, are there buyers left, right? Yeah. Are there buyers left for, three-pedal exotics? Well, we answered that question with the Lambo. Are there still buyers for early 70s, late 60s muscle cars? Though they're all dying. And cars like this are getting inherited by millennials or Z generation, and they don't want them. So they're immediately going to auction. The amount of, dudes in skinny, plated, skinny jeans with plaid on the back and Ed Hardy shirts that would have bought these cars at the Barrett Jackson auction, while slinging a margarita or whatever. Those guys are all dead. They're dying. They're dead, dying, or winding up, in the old folks' homes. And these cars, there's a lot of guys that want this car in my town in Las Vegas. There's a lot of retired people here. My friend JC Fernandez, he does a great show on YouTube. His channel, I think we have him on this show. We had him on Do or Die once.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Yeah, he was on Bid Nerds as well. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's all about cars, collectibles, and garages, and all he does is muscle cars. So he would know this car inside and out. So too bad he's not on this episode tonight. But you see all the people that he goes out and interviews about their cars. They're all boomers or older, man. It's like, are you just trying to get on a list of inheritance list? Like, half these guys are going to die and their kids aren't going to want the car, so they're going to call you and you're going to get them all. JC's smarter than he looks, and he's a smart looking guy. So there it is.
But to that end, right? Like, who's that? That comedian that oh man, I've lost my words, JP. If you had everything in the world, where would you put it, right? So if your buddy inherited all the muscle cars, he can only drive one at a time. Some of these cars, JP, like this one looks like it's done to a pretty high standard. And while the market might be shrinking on that, you got to wonder, is the next owner going to drive it or put it in a museum or just a collection where it'll sit? And, we love Gary, but he doesn't drive his cars hardly at all. It drives us nuts. We wish Gary would lend all the cars out and get them all running and all that sort of thing. And so this kind of thing, just, it's you bring up a really, really good point, JP. And I think this car's best days are behind it, even though it might look as good as new. Chances are it's not going to get regular use. It's not going to get driven to red line. It's not going to do, regular Saturday night, stoplight Grand Prix and stuff like that. And that is kind of a bummer. So anyways, JP, without further ado, we could jump into the numbers if you're ready.
What do we think it's going to bring?
All right. So our car doesn't close for 3 days. Again, it is in, although I don't think I brought it up the first time, Southampton, New York. So it's way on the East Coast. Only 11,000 miles shown, true mileage unknown, but a big restoration not that long ago, and it looks like it's in really good condition. John, it's at $17,000 on 10 bids. So not a lot of action. It's hard to imagine this car is going to go twice as good as that. So like if we double that number at 34, I want to believe that this is at least $40,000 worth of car. So I'm going to give you the bid of $40,000 and say that if the audience, not the audience, but if the desire was more, it's just kind of a stupid thing to say. Yeah, I don't know, JP. Your take really adds levity to the situation. That as nice as this is, who's left to buy these things? And that is, man, that's everything when you're trying to sell. So 40 grand, and I'm not confident it'll get there, but I think it should. I do think this is, if you look at the paperwork, this should be a $45,000, $50,000 example. But how many people are out there waiting for the nicest or the next Dodge Dart Swinger 4-speed to come down the pike? I don't know if there's anybody waiting on this car. So 40 grand, and I'm insecure about my bid as I send it to you, JP. Where are you at?
If you've always wanted one of these, you already have one, or you're never going to get one. So yeah, this car, I don't even know if it's going to break 30, but I'll give it, since you gave it such a high bid, I'll give it 30,340. Hope that someone finds this thing and loves it. They're going to be the last person that buys it to own it. Because whoever buys this car next is the last owner of this car. Because after that, the car is going to be sold at an auction to someone who, I don't know. I mean, who's the next person after that? Like the guy that buys is going to die in 10 years anyway, or less.
Who's your favorite septuagenarian?
It's just like look, that's not to disparage guys that are up there in the age. I mean, look, I'm getting up there in the age.
I'm disparaged.
I'll be 70 before I know it, and and people are gonna be like, "Who wants that stupid old Porsche?" And the answer is, a lot of people will still love Porsches. Porsches, for some reason, it doesn't matter how old they are. There's always going to be a buyer for a Porsche. But for a lot of this is just pure nostalgia play. I don't know. Here's the one chance that these cars have, that kind of makes me maybe I'm wrong, because if these cars get cheap enough, they are a hell of a lot of fun. And if young people tend to buy the things that are cheap, right? So if you look at what 20-year-olds are buying now, they're buying 2008. Fill in the blank cars, it's cheap cars. They're buying an old Toyota, or they're buying an old whatever cars that they're trying to find fun cars in that $10,000, $15,000 range. And there's not a lot out there in that range, right? This car we think is going to go for probably twice as much as that. But okay, what happens in 4 or 5 years, 10 years later? At some point, this is going to be back down to a $10,000 or $15,000 car, because it's going to be an old car that nobody wants. But some young people might go, "Hey, let's get into this. This is now all of a sudden an opportunity for fun." Maybe that's what brings muscle cars back. But let's face it, gas prices are only going to go up. So that's probably not going to happen. They're going to be crushing before long.
That's a really good take, JP. The trouble is, nobody knows. Like, young people don't know what the hell a Dodge Dart is, let alone a Swinger 340. They're more likely to buy an old rusty 6-cylinder Mustang and then try to fit a Chevy 350 under the hood of it or something. Because the Mustang's more iconic, right?
Sure, but that's what I mean. But the Mustangs are always going to bring more money because of that, right? The Mustangs.
That's why I said a rusty 6-cylinder. versus, you can't find a 289 fastback from 1965. Those are all 50, 60 grand. And while this might be a bargain at $30,000 or $40,000, they're more likely to buy a $20,000, like I told you not to buy that car, but like some 6-cylinder Mustang, and then retro kit it out to the way they want it. They'll be buried in it, and it won't be fun for them.
Maybe, but all it takes is one influencer, right? And that's what drives these younger people, right? If they're going, okay, that's the beauty. Like, look, I mean, how we were talking about, you're busting my chops on the MR2 or all these like little silly kind of underpowered cars, right? But the values of those are going up because you can't get the good stuff. So what are people doing? They're digging around for, okay, well, what's the next best thing? What's undervalued? What's an opportunity? And when young car enthusiasts go, okay, I have a little bit of money and I'm looking around and I want this Mustang, but all I can get is this 6-cylinder one and it's a piece of junk. They're going to dig around. Back when we were young and we had to find alternative cars, we had to get into an auto trader, right? An actual printed thing or look at a newspaper and try to learn about this stuff, but we didn't have the internet,
a newspaper?
Right? Exactly. The kids can be like, okay, what else was built in that era that has 200 horsepower, blah, blah, blah. They can start digging around and finding this stuff way more easily. And then what happens? You get some influencer that says, hey, I got a Dodge Dart Swinger and it's awesome and it's half the price of a Mustang. And now all of a sudden it's hipsterville. Look at what happened. The Japanese van market, the scene where the Japanese kids are all into the old minivans and stuff like that. It's who the hell knows? It's just the kids make it cool.
Rear-wheel drive, by the way.
Are there later. Anyways, all right. Let's.
Wait. You brought one good point up, and I just want to ask you this: do you think the owner of this car should have put it on Cars and Bids and tried to get Doug DeMuro to cover it? Would that have brought more money for it?
No way. Not a chance. Doug DeMuro's I don't think it qualifies for Doug DeMuro's because I think his platform is 80s and up, right? There's nobody on Cars and Bids is looking for an old muscle car because they won't even carry him. So there it is. What do you guys think this Swinger will bring? Are all the Swingers dead? Are there buyers out there for these, or is there a couple of old guys that are going, I'm going to relive my swing in the youth? Get me a Swinger? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and let's move on to the last car. What's the last one we got on the list?
All right, JP, it is a 1982 Porsche 928 with just 39,000 miles on P-Car Market. Our car, unfortunately, has an auto-tragic gearbox, but it's low miles, Sarasota, Florida, and it's on P-Car Market. So we haven't covered too many nice 928s, but this car looked really effing clean, and I just thought it'd be kind of fun to take a little visit and see what P-Car Market could do for the poor owner of this auto-tragic 928. It was sold new out of Asheville, North Carolina. They updated the air conditioning system to the R, whatever, blah, 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 blah. These early cars are starting to get some love in the name of having a manual transmission, but this car is low miles, super clean, and still a honking V8 with 220 horsepower. And I just wondered, with phone dials and a rare paint job and black interior, if this car might bring a retail number on P-Car Market. So JP, I like the wheels, I like the color. Obviously, we don't like the gearbox, but these could be a really good bargain for somebody. I don't like the cars with the door strips. See those strips down the side of the door? I feel like the dealers put those on, and if you really hunt, you can find the one you're looking for that doesn't have that, and you don't, because if you get one that has it, I think they pin that into the metal. Like if you want to remove that thing, you got to do body work and paint. So you really want to find one that doesn't have that. But I like this car; it's clean, and what the hell? Why not? So JP, I toss it over to you. What do you like here? What don't you like? And do you think this car has any chance in hell on P-Car Market, or do you think, hey man, it's a $20,000 car and P-Car Market gets you 20 grand for that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's a fairly clean car. I don't think I don't think P-Car Market is a bad play for this car. I mean, look, as much as we rip on P-Car Market, they do get the job done fairly often on Porsches. If you had something that wasn't a Porsche, I think you're really rolling the dice. But if you want to get to market quickly, sometimes P-Car Market is the better option. If you have an old classic car, classic Porsche, Cars and Bids just can't get the job done. So it's pretty much BAT or P-Car Market. And yeah, it sucks that you have to deal with P-Car Market. But look, it's a nice, clean Porsche. yes, obviously would rather have 3 pedals, but these cars are fun with an automatic. It would be a cool car to have in the mix. It's just a great looking car. I don't mind those strips down the side. I actually kind of prefer the strip over the non-strip. What? Yeah,
no way.
I think it looks a little bit more, I don't know, updated or something like that. But whatever, I can go either way. It's not a deal breaker for me one way or the other. This car seems like it's kind of clean and kind of, I don't know what the maintenance is on this car. I don't know, obviously this is my first time looking at, I did not get a chance to look at the listing before we started tonight.
Me too.
It really comes down to the maintenance needs for this car because look, we talked about it in the past when we covered that 78 928 fairly recently when we had Pete Stout on the show. It's so expensive to maintain these, and there are a lot of things that tend to break on these, and when they break big. There's no easy way to correct a lot of the stuff, it's just a lot of the old Porsche shops don't even want to work on them. And if they do, they're going to charge you extra per hour. There are shops that we know of that are tacking on $100 or more per hour to work on one of these. And part of the problem is because anytime you work on them, just about any time you got to pull the engine out of the darn thing, which means taking up a rack. It's not like, like a 911, you drop the engine out of the back, you put it on the little cart, and then you can drop the 911 back down and just roll the 911 around to somewhere else and put another car on the rack, and you can keep working while you're waiting for parts or waiting for somebody to work on the engine. But these, it's just not the case. It's so laborious to get the engine out of one of these. It's going to be out for a while. God help you finding the parts, and what parts you're going to need. You don't know until the whole thing's taken apart. I just think that people are really scared of these. It doesn't help that this is a branded title too. This is a salvage. This is a rebuild. How P-car market is that? Yeah, we missed that. That's a big thing to miss.
And so what it is in the comments, and I'm reading them while you're talking, which is typically how we do the show. He goes on to be up front, the seller, and he said, this owner, and then this other guy had a fuel line that ruptured and caught fire, and the car was a total loss. So then he sold it to a guy who oversaw a complete restoration of the car, and the car sold on P-Car Market in 2022. I didn't run the VIN to see what it brought back then, but it's really interesting to see that a low mileage automatic 928 got completely restored. To me, is stunning, and that was basically after 2015. So this all happened in the last 6, 7, 8 years, which is just fascinating to me that somebody would spend the money to bring this car back. And if you are, it's so funny. I don't like those door strips so much that it's mind-numbing to me that somebody would restore one of these and then put those back on the car. I know you like it for the reasons that you stated, but I like the slick style. I think somehow they just always look like an afterthought to me, JP, and so they mess with my my sensibilities.
But if they're original, though, if you're restoring a car, you're bringing you're bringing it back to original, and so if that's what
I don't think they came from Porsche. Do you think they came from Germany?
Oh, yeah,
that way, or do you think they
really?
Oh man,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
I disagree.
That is absolutely a piece that came because that's. The car continued on. That was one of those features or whatever. That was one of those things that they put it on some of the earlier cars and then kept on the later cars. It was the 944 did the same thing. All the transaxle cars had, some of them had the stripping, some of them didn't, and all the later ones did. So it wound up being something that carried over into the later cars. And I think maybe that's what makes me like it a little bit, is because when I was younger, the newer 928s were the ones that I liked, and I didn't like the old 928s, and that strip along the side kind of made it look like a newer one. Kind of like when the 85.5 944 or even some of the 85 944s had the phone dial wheels, but the 85 had the old ugly dash, and then the 85.5 had the much nicer updated interior, which was way better looking interior. And as someone who couldn't afford the newer one, it was like, oh, okay, it's cool to get an older one, but it has the cool wheels on it, so people will think it's newer. I don't know, whatever. Again, I could go either way with the stripping. I'm really not, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I definitely prefer it but it wouldn't make really any difference to me one way or the other. But it was definitely a factory item. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Way too
All
much
right, so
about
let's talk-
weather stripping on a stupid 928. What do we think this thing will bring?
All right, so the bid at the moment is $2,500. It's just one bid. It closes in 2 days and 16 hours. More and more, JP, we don't see any bids on PCAR market until the car is ready to close. So it'll be interesting to see if this car gets to what is a retail number for the car, or if this car just winds up in the chum bucket. And I think with the branded title, it's destined for the chum bucket. But I'll just talk about the value and not the platform. So this should be a $45,000 car. You would do about a 25% knock on the automatic transmission. That would bring your number down to 34. And then I think it's about a 30% knock for the branded title. So you take about another $11,000 off that number, and you're down into that low $20,000 range. So since this car is on PCAR market, I'll just give you, if this car goes to 20 grand, I think it should sell. If it doesn't make 20 grand, then I expect to see it in the chum bucket for probably $30,000, $25,000, something like that. But it would be a miracle to get to my number. But you could make an argument because it's been completely restored that it is worth $20,000 or $23,000. I just don't know if PCAR market will find that money for this consignor. So John, 20 grand to you. It's an easy under to take, but where are you at really? What's your number?
The title thing, that question comes up a lot. On a modern car, a salvage title is the kiss of death. On a classic car, you really have to look at it, specifically what is the deal, right? And like what happened. You actually have to know what happened. And here we know the story, right? These cars and most classic, like if you look at any old Porsche, like something like this, like you said, the value should be $40,000 if it was a clean title, all those things. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this was a $4,000 or $5,000 car. If someone rear-ended it and it was $3,000 in damage, or even a couple of grand in damage, the car's totaled. And was the car really totaled though? I mean, you can put a couple $1,000s in damage by breaking the taillight and bending the bumper, right? So that not really a big deal. But it's totaled, right? But so you really got to look at when it was totaled. If this thing were totaled last year, now that they've appreciated, okay, last year the book value on this car was probably, $30,000 or $40,000. So to total it would take $20-something thousand in damage. Well, okay, that means it was really, really damaged. So when was it totaled and what was the situation? This was some kind of engine fire. That makes sense on one of these. And actually in a lot of ways it's a benefit because now all that the wiring harnesses that are a liability on these cars. Okay. Well, that's clearly been updated on this car. So we're good. I think this car represents a value and there are a lot of people that want something like this, but don't want to spend 40 grand. But if they could get it for 20 something and it's really nice, who cares what the title says? I'm driving it. Right. So I think I'm going to surprise you and I'm going to bid over you, but not by a whole lot. I'm going to go 21,928 and say that, I think this thing could even get to 25. And it wouldn't even shock me if it got darn near 30 because it really is a clean, nice looking car. And we haven't really mentioned the color too. It's a very pretty color. I prefer blacks, whites, silvers and stuff like that. But this is like with a matching blue exterior and interior. This looks like a nice place to spend time. So I think if you were either looking for an inexpensive way into the classic Porsche market, this would be a great way to do it. Or if you wanted to add a car to the collection, maybe you have a modern one, but you want a classic to the collection, but you don't want to step up for another, $80,000 for a 300,000 mile 911 like we talked about at the beginning of the show. I think, are there buyers for old 928s on PCAR market? I think the answer is yes, and we're going to find out soon. But I'm optimistic about this car.
I've got two little games to play with you really quick. So the first one is for the money. If the money's pretty similar, would you rather have this or a super low mile manual Acura Legend?
Boy, that is a very good question. Yeah. At
this one's automatic, but it's a Porsche.
Yeah. At $20,000, I'm
21,000 or whatever.
Yeah. Let's just say 20 grand, give or take, because I mean, so this specific 920 versus the gold car at the top of the hour.
Let's say, the gold one didn't bring the money, but let's say that it was black on black, 80,000 miles in manual. JP.
Oh yeah, I'm taking the Legend all day long. If the Acura were almost any color combo other than that color combo, it would be the Acura without even blinking. But if it were like straight up that car or this car, because we don't even know if this car will bring 16 grand, right?
Right.
There's a very possibility it could stall out.
It could. It probably will.
Right. It's maybe likely.
Yeah.
So this car or the Acura, I'm probably still taking the Acura because I know the Acura. I know the Acura animal, and it's a manual, and they're just
similar horsepower too, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, then the Acura is going to be just so much smoother and nicer to drive in general. And I already have classic Porsches, so I'd like to add a JDM in there. Maybe it would be a different story if I didn't have a classic Porsche or something like that. I mean, honestly, you know what I'd love to do is get rid of my stupid Macan and get that Acura and never have to buy a regular daily driver again. I don't know why I ever bought that Macan. Buying something like that Acura with 5 speeds, you row the pedals, and never ever have to buy another car again my entire life.
Do you remember how much you loved it when you bought it like several years ago? You really liked that car.
The Acura?
About 8 weeks.
Well, no, the Acura.
No, the Macan GTS when you first got it.
Look, the Macan is just great, but it's such a pile of shit. I'll tell you.
Audi.
It is.
It's an Audi.
That particular Acura that we were talking about, the 91, right? The bubble for that car's body style was 90-91. I think there was some crossover, so the old body style carried over in 91. So the later 91s, I think, were the newer, nicer one. Back in, I want to say, gosh, maybe this was 2000. No, what am I saying? Like 1997, 98. We were talking about the Auto Trader, and we were talking about looking for cars in newspapers. Remember back then when you'd look for a car in a newspaper classified and there wasn't even a damn picture, right? So you'd see a description of a car, and you'd always look for those bubble cars, the year under or over. And it's like 91 Acura Legend, 5-speed, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a price, right? And the price was what the price of the old ones were going for. So I'm like, So I remember calling the guy in the little nickel one ad going, what year is this? He's like, it's a 91. I'm like, is it kind of like a rounder body style or like the more edgy body style? He's like, it's the edgy body style. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still interested, right? The price was still good. And I remember driving up the guy's driveway in Snohomish in the dark, right? It's raining. Coming around the corner, and there's cows over. It was the weirdest deal. And there was this gray on black new body style Acura. Yeah. I thought I hit the lottery. I'm like, no way. It's the new one. Holy shit. I couldn't get out of the car fast. I was like, how fast can I give you the guy? I was like, do you want to drive it? I don't care. It's the new one. Just take the title before you change your damn mind. And someone else shows up. I was just shocked. And
brilliant.
I made a lot of money on that car, even driving it after a year or something like that. It was such a great car. But anyways, that's a story. Anyways, that's the show, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is Bid Nerds live edition. We're coming back on Wednesday night, like we always do at 6:30. And I need to look up who our guest is. Some of you
out there in the guy from Seattle, the ideal guy? What's his name?
Those guys are going to come on. We're still trying to set up a time. Brad had some issues with
what's his name?
Brad. Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot. I'm totally
sorry. My bad.
Brad,
we only met him for a second.
Yeah,
super nice guy.
I'm totally spacing.
Super nice guy.
The ideal guys are awesome, but they're both going to come on, and but we're trying to find the date for them.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly when that's going to
We'll give them a proper plug when we remember their name.
Of course. And then I can't believe you did that to me. Let's see here. Frank Kaiser's coming on this Wednesday from the R Group. Apparently he published one of the definitive R Group book.
Chris, I suspect Chris Carbine had something to do with that.
That is correct. He set that up. We may, and Chris Carbine himself might be a guesting. It's going to be from the Carbine Motor Club there.
Oh, from the garage?
Yeah,
from the facility?
The garage, yeah.
All right.
Down there in New Orleans. So we're looking forward to that. We'll know more details on Tuesday night.
If Chris is running the broadcast through his business, can we invoice him for it? Anthony's online too.
I think you need to set that deal up with our friends over there. Oh my gosh.
Here we go.
Yeah. Well,
Gallardo's.
Gallardo's it is.
Or Legends. Whichever one comes cheaper.
Very true. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.
Peace.
Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends.
Get those nerds!